Okay, so this is video number 2. The first networking video was the server side. Now it's going to be the code from the client side. So here we are back in Java. We're going to say File, New, Project. We're going to go JavaFX, JavaFX Project. Next. And then we're going to name this So we're going to name this ClientFX. The other one was ClientServerFX. So this is the one that's going to set the project that's going to set on the client. This is the one we just did, setting on the server. So here I am in that I created a class called Client Java. So this is where all my code is going to be, in this class called Client.java. The first thing I want to do is set up my imports. So I'm going to import java.i. Then I'm going to input java.net.star. Then I'm going to import. I might have been saying input because I'm confused. I'm going to do 2 more imports, one from the geography insets and from the geography pause or position. Sticking with my imports, I'm going to import JavaFX.application. 2 more imports, JavaFX stage. My other one is JavaFX scene. So this sets up my stage, sets up my scene. I'm going to have 4 scene controls. So JavaFX scene control, 1 label, 1 scroll pane, 1 for a text area, and 1 for a text field. So the label obviously is going to go in this text area, just a label. The text field is where the data is going to be displayed. The scroll pane is going to take that text field and scroll it, and the text area is actually where the text field is going to reside. And my final import is Java Scene Layout Border Pane, so I can play around with the border of my import. I can import border of my scene. So the next thing I'm going to create is my class. I'm going to call it Client. The other one I called Server, so this is the client side. The other class that I had in my other package was my server. So just like my server extended application, so will my client, because I'm using this JavaFX code. Okay, so inside my client class, the first thing I'm going to do is just create 2 reference variables. One that's going to refer to a data output stream. This is output to the server, and another from a data input stream, input from the server. For right now, I'll default them to nothing. Alright, so in my JavaFX program, this is the meat and potatoes, my start method. So in my start method, I'm just going to set up my text pane. So I'm going to create border pane, text pane. So this will be my text pane. I'm going to just create the way it looks and feels. So I'm going to set the padding, the style, and I'm going to place the label in the pane. So I'm going to set the padding, the font for my border, and this label enter. I don't want to enter ID number. I want to enter the number to cube. The number to cube. So in my text pane, I need to create a text field. So this is for my text field. I'm going to call it, my text object is going to be text. My text object is text. Just like my border pane object is text pane. I'm going to set my alignment bottom right, so it's going to come down here, and I'm going to center it. So now I'm going to create my main border pane where I'm going to place these objects. So I'm going to create my text area where I'm going to display the stuff. For example, enter the number to cube, and then the cube of the number is. So here's my area object. This is my text area. So my area object, I'm going to say text area, area gets new text area. And then I'm going to take my main pane and set center. Set center to new scroll pane area. So I'm going to take this area and place it in my main pane basically. And then I'm going to set the top to my text pane. So I got the text pane, and then I have my area. So now I built all my objects, and the next thing I'm going to do is take this main pane that I slowly built, and I'm going to place it inside of a scene. I'm going to set the location or the size of the window. I'm going to set the title for the primary stage, Valencia student client, whatever. I'm going to place the scene onto the stage, and then I'm going to show the stage. So here's my title, put my scene on the stage, and show the stage. So now when the user of the client is going to try to enter a value, this is going inside of my try. I'm going to parse out from the text, from that text area, from the text in the text area, whatever they typed, some number. I'm going to get that text, trim it off, take that number, get the integer, and stick it in, let's call it number, inside of number. And then I'm going to take that number value and I'm going to send it to the server, and I'm going to write to the server that number. In my data stream to the server, only as I write, not as I read, there's going to be leftover bytes of maybe garbage. And if you remember from the C days, this flush, same type of flush, but this is just flushing out the data stream to the server. So after we write, we flush, not read. After we write, we flush. So this sends the information to the server, this reads it from the server. So from the server, I'm going to read in the result. So this should be the cube of this number. So I take the cube of the number, and I'm going to display the stuff here. So I'm going to append to this text object this message, the cube of the number is result. So the cube of 3 is 27, for example. So this is the end of sending information to the server and receiving information from the server. Somewhere along the line here, this try could have failed, and here I do my catch. So as I'm sending this input-output, I could get an IO exception. So inside of this lambda method, I got my try, my catch. If I do get this IO exception error, I'm going to send system.error print line. But this one I'm going to put on the screen too, and this one is just going to say I have an IO issue. So this is your standard error handler message, and this is the one I created. So I try to send and receive information from the server. If I can, great. If I can't, I display this. So this is my text.setActionOn. Here's the try and catch, and here's the end of this lambda expression. So from here to here. So here's another attempt to create a socket to my local host or to my local server. If not, this is going to be a IP address to wherever the server is located. This is the port number. If you remember back in the server, we used port 8000. So here, this could become a variable if I wanted, and I could prompt the user. There are other ways to get this local host or not local host, but this is basically a DNS name, or this is an IP address. So I'm creating my input, my output stream, or at least I'm attempting to inside of this try. So from the server, new data input stream, socket.get input stream, and to create my output to the server, new data output stream. So if you remember, way up here is where we created this to server reference variable and from server. So that's basically the end of my try. So if my try is not successful, it's going to throw an IO exception error. And I'm going to take this area that we created object, and I'm going to append a string to it. And then that's the standard error handling, and I'm just going to output to the screen. I have an issue to and from the server. So that's the end of my catch, and that's the end of my start method. So my start method begins up here, way up here, and my start method ends right here. The very last thing I have to do is I have to do my standard main, public static void main, and I have to launch so that I can kick off my start method. Okay, so for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to close this out. And I'm going to come over to my left side here and take a look at what I got going. And here's where I have that client FX and my client server. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to close both of these projects so that, as you can see, I have nothing open, nothing running. So the first thing I should do is get my server up and running. So I'm going to open up my server application, which is this. And this is what we did earlier. This is what we did earlier, if I can move this around. So here's my server, and we're going to run it. So I'm going to run my server application. Boom. And here's that window. My server started Wednesday, July 13th. There's the time and date. So my server's sitting here and it's waiting for a client to connect. So the next thing we might want to do is open up the client program. So my client program is right here. This is what we wrote a minute ago. So now I have my server and my client both open, and I am going to leave this server running in the background. Here it is, right here, running in the background. This is a complete separate project. This guy is in a different project than this one. Here's my client. Here's my server, two different projects. And now I'm going to run the client. So to run the client, maybe I can grab this. To run the client, I'm going to hit run. So here's my server, here's my client. My client's going to write to my server. Close that out for a minute. So here's a little program from, I believe this is some of the New Boston. Setting up a server. This is the server side. This is using JFrame. So here's my fields. Here is my server. This is my server class. This is my constructor method. I'm using some action listeners. There's my message. I am placing these things in my scroll pane in my text area. I am making them visible or not visible. I'm starting the server. This is my port, and this number here, just so you know, is, as I'm sitting here polling for new connections, the most I'm going to allow people is waiting is 100. So I will allow 100 people to connect. Coming down here, this is the server waiting for someone to connect. Once a connection attempt has been made, this sets up my streams. This flushes out the buffer. This sets up my input stream. Notice there's no flush needed here. This says waiting for connection, lets me know when I'm connected, tells me the streams are ready, and now I'm ready to rock and roll. This is part of me reading back and forth. By the way, this is a chat room. This is what this thing does. And this sends messages from the server. And at the end, this is my close stuff. This is like cleaning a house. This just shuts everything down. Now let me show you this run. So here's the server. The server's up and running. The server's up and running. If I can move this around. The server's up and running. I'm sorry. That was from the client side. Wrong one. This one right here. This is my server. So let me run it. Move this down so you can see it. So this is my server sitting there in that loop waiting for a connection with somebody. So this sits there. Here's my client. Let me run that. So what we can see is this is my client window. And this is my server window. Make this a little bigger. So this was sitting there waiting for a connection. I am now connected once this ran. My streams are ready to go, and I'm ready to rock, if you remember that code. So this is the server side, this is the client side, and the client side I'm connected to this server at this IP address, and the client connection streams are ready to use. So on the client side I say hello, there, and watch what happens on the server side. Remember, two completely different projects, and the client says hello there. Notice we echo in both windows. The server says, what do you want? The server says, what do you want? So I can go back and forth and like a mini chat room. Kind of cool. X out, program runs, everything closes, and I'm done. Alright. Again, my opinion is we're going to forget most of this, so we're exposed to it, and that's what we need to be. I'm going to